The Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty main street of Redemption Creek. Population 847. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business, where the general store doubled as the post office, and where secrets were harder to keep than cattle in a broken fence. But in the summer of 1889, one rancher was about to keep the most important secret of his life. Maria Gonzalez had walked for 3 days straight. Her feet were bleeding through her worn shoes, her lips were cracked from thirst, and her dark hair hung in tangled masses around her thin shoulders. At 13 years old, she should have been learning her letters or helping her mother with the washing. Instead, she was running for her life. She'd left everything behind: her younger sisters, her ailing mother, even the small wooden cross her grandmother had given her. All she'd taken was the dress on her back, and a determination so fierce it had carried her across 40 miles of unforgiving prairie. When she finally stumbled into Redemption Creek that afternoon, collapsing near the horse trough outside the Silver Star Saloon, she had only one thought repeating in her exhausted mind: "I will not be a wife. I'm too young to be a wife." Thomas Brennan was checking the shoes on his mare when he heard the commotion. At 42, he'd seen his share of trouble. He'd fought in the closing days of the war between the states, lost a wife to typhoid, and spent the last 15 years building the Broken Bee Ranch from nothing but determination and calloused hands. He was a man who kept to himself, paid his hands fairly, and had earned a reputation for being as stubborn as he was honest. "Someone get Doc Peterson," a woman's voice called out. Thomas handed the reins to his foreman and pushed through the gathering crowd. The girl lying in the dust looked more like a child playing dress-up in her mother's clothes than anything else. Her dress was too large, cinched at the waist with rope. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, and even unconscious, her small hands were clenched into fists. Doc Peterson arrived with his black bag, his white mustache bristling with concern. "Let's get her to my office," he said, but as he and Thomas lifted the girl, her eyes flew open with wild panic. "No," she gasped in Spanish, then switching to heavily accented English. "No, please, I cannot go back. Tell them I died. Tell them anything." Her eyes fixed on Thomas with desperate intensity. "I'm too young to be a wife." The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. He knew exactly what she was running from. He'd seen it before. Families so poor or so callous they'd marry off their daughters to men old enough to be their grandfathers, treating children like property to be traded. His jaw tightened. "Nobody's sending you anywhere," he said firmly. "Doc, take her to my ranch instead. She'll be safe there." The doctor's eyebrows rose nearly to his hairline, but he nodded. Thomas Brennan's word was good as gold in these parts. That evening, after Doc Peterson had treated Maria's feet, given her water and broth, and declared she'd recover with rest, Thomas sat on his porch watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, a Chinese widow who'd come west with the railroad workers and stayed when her husband died, brought him coffee. "That girl, Mrs. Chen said in her precise English, "she runs from something terrible." "I know it," Thomas replied. "She cannot stay here without people talking. You know this." Thomas did know it. An unmarried man harboring a young girl would set every tongue in the county wagging, and not in a kind way. His reputation would be ruined, and worse, someone might force Maria to return to whatever she'd fled from. He sat up straighter. "Then we'll need a story, a good one." Over the next few days, as Maria regained her strength, Thomas carefully constructed their cover. Maria was the orphaned daughter of his late wife's distant cousin from Mexico. Her parents had died of influenza, and with nowhere else to go, she'd made the dangerous journey to her only living relative. Mrs. Chen would serve as chaperone and guardian, ensuring everything remained proper. When Maria was well enough to sit at the kitchen table, Thomas explained the plan. She listened carefully, her dark eyes never leaving his face. "Why you help me?" she asked quietly. "You don't know me. I bring you trouble." Thomas was quiet for a long moment, remembering another young girl, years ago, whom no one had helped. "Because it's the right thing to do," he finally said, "and because you were brave enough to say no." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "My father, he make deal with Don Estrada, very old man, very rich. He say I must marry or my family starve, but Don Estrada, he has other wives, young wives, some of them," she swallowed hard, "some of them disappear." Thomas's hands clenched on the table. "You did the right thing running, and I give you my word nobody will force you back there." Over the following weeks, Thomas worked to make Maria's presence official and beyond reproach. He rode to the county seat and filed papers declaring her his ward, with Mrs. Chen as her guardian. He enrolled her in the small schoolhouse, where Miss Abernathy, the teacher, took an immediate liking to the bright, eager student. He bought her proper clothes, shoes that fit, and books. But it wasn't easy. Redemption Creek might have been small, but its gossip mill was mighty. At the general store, Mrs. Hutchinson made a point of examining Maria with narrowed eyes. "Mighty convenient, finding a ward just when you need help around that big ranch," she said loudly enough for half the store to hear. Thomas's foreman, Jack Sullivan, a grizzled cow, and who'd been with him for 10 years, overheard and stepped forward. "Mighty inconvenient, you mean? Boss has to feed another mouth and pay for schooling when he could have just hired another hand. But that's Tom Brennan for you, does right by family, even distant family." The support helped, but not everyone was convinced. 3 weeks after Maria's arrival, trouble came calling in the form of Don Estrada himself. The Mexican landowner arrived with 2 armed men, riding into Redemption Creek like he owned it. He was exactly as Maria had described, old enough to be her grandfather, with cold eyes and a smile that never reached them. He went straight to the sheriff's office. Thomas was in town when word reached him. He found the Don speaking with Sheriff Morrison, a man Thomas had known for 15 years. "I'm looking for a girl," Don Estrada was saying in perfect English, "a runaway, 13 years old, about this tall." He gestured. "She belongs to me. She's my betrothed, purchased legally from her father. I have papers saying you bought a child." Thomas's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "That's not legal in Texas, Don Estrada. This isn't Mexico." The Don turned, his eyes glittering. "Ah, Senor Brennan, I heard you might have information about my missing property." "She's not property. She's a child. She's my future wife, paid for with good gold. Her father accepted my offer. It's a matter of honor." Sheriff Morrison looked between the 2 men, clearly uncomfortable. "Now, Tom, if he has legal papers from Mexico—" "We're in Texas, Bill, and I have legal papers too." Thomas pulled out the guardianship documents. "Maria is my ward, properly filed with the county. She's a minor under my protection. Whatever agreement was made in Mexico doesn't hold weight here." Don Estrada's face hardened. "You're harboring stolen property, Senor Brennan. I could have you arrested. Try it," Thomas said quietly. "But you should know Maria told me about the other young wives who disappeared. Funny how that works, isn't it? You go through wives awfully fast for a man who claims to honor marriage." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Don Estrada's hand moved toward his belt, but Sheriff Morrison stepped between them. "Gentlemen," he said firmly. "Don Estrada, I don't know how things work where you're from, but here in Texas we don't force children into marriage. Mr. Brennan has legal guardianship, properly filed. Unless you can prove girl came here of her own will to you and is leaving of her own will, I can't help you. She ran away from a legal contract. A contract to marry a child isn't legal here, Morrison interrupted. And from what I hear, trying to force it might get you in front of a judge. Now, I suggest you head back across the border before we have a bigger problem. Don Estrada stared at Thomas with pure hatred. This isn't over, Senor Brennan. I don't forget debts, or insults. After he left, Sheriff Morrison turned to Thomas. You know you just made a dangerous enemy. I know it. That girl better be worth the trouble. Thomas thought of Maria, who was at that moment sitting in the schoolhouse learning to read English. Her face lit up with joy at each new word. She is, he said simply. The weeks turned into months. Don Estrada made several more attempts, sending lawyers with dubious legal claims, hiring men to watch the ranch, even trying to bribe Maria's father to come retrieve her. But Thomas met each challenge with stubborn determination. He hired additional ranch hands who were good with rifles, not just cattle. He made sure Maria was never alone, and he continued filing every piece of paperwork that would cement her legal status. Maria herself was thriving. She'd gone from a frightened, exhausted child to a bright young student who devoured books like they were candy. Miss Abernathy reported she was learning English at an astonishing rate and had a particular gift for mathematics. Mrs. Chen taught her to cook and sew, and Maria helped around the ranch with enthusiasm, feeding chickens and tending the vegetable garden. One evening, about 6 months after her arrival, Maria found Thomas on the porch as usual. She sat beside him, no longer the terrified child, but still small for her age. "Senor Thomas," she said quietly, "I want to thank you. No need for thanks. There is every need." She was quiet for a moment, watching the stars appear. "Before I run away, I think maybe I just die. Is easier than fighting, but then I think. I have little sisters. If I don't fight, if I just accept, then what I teach them, that they have no voice, that they are just things to be sold." She turned to look at him, and in the dim light, Thomas saw not a child but a young woman of remarkable courage. "So I run. For 3 days, I think maybe I die anyway. I'm so tired, so thirsty, but I keep walking. And when I cannot walk any more, I think, at least I die free. At least I say no. And then—" She smiled. "Then I find you. You give me more than safety, Senor Thomas. You give me what I need most." "What's that?" "You believe me when I say I'm too young. You believe a girl can say no. You believe I'm person, not property." Thomas felt a lump in his throat. "You are a person, Maria. Don't ever forget that. And you're braver than most folks twice your age. I learn from you," she said simply. "You brave too. Everyone say, why Thomas Brennan risk everything for some Mexican girl, but you don't care what they say. You do right thing anyway." They sat in comfortable silence until Mrs. Chen called them for supper. 2 years passed. Maria turned 15, then 16. She graduated from the small schoolhouse at the top of her class and began helping Miss Abernathy teach the younger children. She'd grown taller, though still petite, and her English was now flawless. She wore her hair in a practical bun and had a habit of standing with her shoulders back and her chin up, the bearing of someone who knew her own worth. Don Estrada had finally stopped his legal maneuvering, though Thomas heard through various sources that the old man hadn't forgotten his grudge. But with each passing year, Maria's position became more secure. One day, a young deputy from the county seat came to the ranch with news. Don Estrada had died thrown from a horse, they said, though rumors suggested his most recent young wife might have had something to do with it. Either way, the threat was gone. Maria received the news quietly. I should feel happy, she told Thomas. But I just feel tired of being afraid. Then stop being afraid. Thomas said, You're safe now, really safe. No more looking over your shoulder. She nodded slowly, and for the first time in 2 years, her shoulders truly relaxed. As more time passed, Maria became an integral part of Redemption Creek. She tutored students, helped Mrs. Chen run the ranch house with efficiency that amazed everyone, and even started teaching Sunday school at the small church. The town that had once whispered about her now pointed to her with pride. When she was 18, a young schoolteacher from the county seat began courting her. A respectful young man named Daniel who waited patiently for her approval before so much as holding her hand. Thomas watched their cautious courtship with a mixture of pride and paternal concern. One evening, Maria came to him with a serious expression. Senor Thomas, I mean Thomas. He'd long since convinced her to drop the formal address. Daniel has asked me to marry him. Thomas's heart clenched, but he kept his voice steady. And what did you say? I said I need to think. I need to be sure. She sat beside him. When I was 13, I run away because someone tried to force me to be a wife. Now I'm 18, and someone asks if I want to be a wife. The difference is everything, yes, yes, Thomas agreed. The difference is choice. I think I want to say yes. Daniel is kind, he is patient, he respects me. When I speak, he listens. When I say no, he stops. He doesn't see me as property or prize. He sees me as Maria. Just Maria, and that is enough for him. Then he's a lucky man. She smiled. I'm lucky too, but Thomas. She took his weathered hand in her smaller ones. I need you to know. You saved my life, not just from Don Estrada. You saved my life by showing me that I'm worth saving, that I have value beyond what some man decides. You teach me that I can say no. And now I know I can also say yes, when I'm ready, when it's right, when it's my choice. Thomas felt tears sting his eyes. I'm proud of you, Maria. Your parents would be proud too. My mother wrote me. Maria said quietly. Last month, first time in 5 years, my father died. The drink, she says. My sisters are older now, she says. She says she's sorry. She didn't know what else to do, but she should have found another way. She should have protected me. What did you write back? I tell her I understand. Poverty makes people desperate, but I also tell her. I teach my sisters different. I send them money when I can. I tell them they have choices, they have voice. She smiled. My little sister Rosa, she writes me. She says she want to be teacher like me. She says she will never let anyone make her do something she doesn't want. I think maybe I change things. Not just for me, for them too. They sat together as the sun set. The man who'd taken a chance, and the girl who'd been brave enough to run toward an uncertain future rather than accept a certain hell. A year later, Maria married Daniel in the small church in Redemption Creek. Thomas walked her down the aisle, and when the preacher asked who gave this woman to be married, he said clearly, she gives herself, of her own free will and choice. I just have the honor of standing beside her. After the ceremony, as the town celebrated with music and dancing, Thomas sat on the church steps watching. Mrs. Chen joined him, older now but still sharp-eyed. You did good thing, she said simply. I just gave her a chance to choose. Thomas replied. No, Mrs. Chen said. You give her more. You give her something to choose with. You give her education, safety, time to grow up. You give her power to say no so she could one day say yes. That is gift beyond price. Thomas watched Maria dance with her new husband, laughing with genuine joy, and thought about the desperate, exhausted child who'd collapsed in the street 5 years ago. She'd been right when she'd said she was too young to be a wife. But more importantly, She'd been brave enough to fight for the chance to decide for herself when she was ready. Years later, long after Thomas had passed peacefully in his sleep, and Maria had raised 3 children of her own, she would tell her daughters and her granddaughters the story. She would tell them about the day she decided to run, about the man who'd protected her right to choose, and about the importance of being brave enough to say no, and to teach the next generation to do the same. And she would always end the story the same way. I was too young to be a wife, but I was old enough to be brave, and that made all the difference.